And it is great to have all of you here on a Hawkeye Tuesday at the Voice of College Football. We come your way, as you can see down below, 144 consecutive weeks. This is your time at 4:30 Central Time. There in the heartland, we've got Corey Bradda here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Leave those comments and questions. We appreciate your Super Chat contributions as well. Venmo, PayPal, and Cash Apps available. But if you do use that route, please let us know that it's for the Iowa show. Corey, how's it going today?
Doing good, Mark. And one thing I don't understand is why more people don't give you thousands of dollars on their Cash App, PayPal, Venmo. People should start giving you thousands.
Well, I would say the same for you in your platform.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. So, people, you know what to do.
As content, you made a comment the other day when we were talking about some of your recent content, and I think that was the Cooper DeJean snub after the first round, and then some people had made some comments about the title, and you were just explaining, hey, we are reputable in regards to our journalistic approach, but there is a entertainment value or a value to, obviously, because of the competition out there, to allure people in to the conversation and watch the video. So that is a element there. I got to say, when I click on various shows, and they're usually not sports shows, they're usually of other nature, and I see these super chats lighting up the screen like a pinball machine.
Yeah.
I'm like, geez,
what's going
on there?
Not to go on a different rant, but Iowa's been hit really hard by severe storms over the last 4 to 5 days. I don't know if you've heard that on the national news, Mark, but we're actually under another tornado watch as we speak. But there have been a couple of communities that have really been devastated. So certainly thoughts and prayers to those communities. But I will say this, there are people online, you've probably seen them, Mark, that cover severe weather. And like what we do from a sports standpoint, am I hearing a weather radio going off? Hearing something high.
Do whatever you need to do to be safe.
I don't know where that's coming from. Something high pitched. If my whole thing explodes, you'll know I went out doing what I really enjoy. But anyways, so as it relates to the weather thing, we do this sports show, and we're kind of I don't know what you want to call us, but the new age way of people consuming content. Not that the ESPNs of the world don't still exist, and not that we're garnishing anywhere close to some of those national networks with their talk shows, but you get my point. And I think we're seeing that way of communicating translating through different, or I should say spreading through different fields. And meteorology is one of those. And there's a guy I was watching, I won't give him a free promo on here, but there's a guy I was watching during one of the severe outbreaks the other day. And he was talking on his show about how he is he's a college student who I assume is studying meteorology. And he's working with some system where he's able to get weather maps and all these alerts, and he's got a bottom ticker, and he's got all these, it's really cool setup. He had, I want to say, let me get this right, I think he had somewhere in the range of about 10,000 people watching when I logged on. But Mark, I kid you not, this guy had his bed in the background, unmade bed in the background. And he's just sitting there, and people are like, oh, why don't you go work for this network? And this, he's like, I don't need to. I got this, and I got all I need. And I'm like, man, this is what the world's coming to. Like, the reality of it is the rules have changed, like standards have changed. And I'm not advocating for, I don't have my bed in the background. I think there's a degree of professionalism that's still needed. Hey, a white background is better than a messy bed background, Mark. All right.
Yes. Until I go to set. Like I get made fun of quite often for this, or people just out of concern say, Mark, you need to do something. You're going to get more viewers and all that. I'm working on things. I'm working on things.
Ooh.
So I'm going to upgrade at some point.
I guess my point is, like, the standards have changed.
Yes.
But there is absolutely a fine line, I think, with what we're doing. If you're trying to maintain some level of professionalism while also trying to exercise the benefits of what we're doing, you have to be able to be malleable. And you see some platforms that have jumped onto YouTube or these, a podcast, and they don't know how to balance that at all. They either go way off in one direction or way off in the other. And I think, in my opinion, the most successful and the most sustainable method is finding where that balance is. And I do think it's attainable, but anyways, people aren't going to want to hear about this very much longer. But I thought it was interesting because this guy was, not that this guy doesn't know anything about weather, but he was talking about how I've had all these offers from these different TV stations, and who knows if he's telling the truth or not, right? And somebody asked him, are you going to do an internship with some, news network? And he's like, I've talked to my professors and they say this is better than an internship, and, yada, yada, yada. And I don't doubt him, Mark. If you had 10,000 people, and I'm not saying it's a regular thing for him, but he had 10,000 people throwing him donations, new members just constantly. It's like, yeah, why would you go work for, the local, even the state, the biggest state news organization in your area? Like, why would you do that? That's the modern age of media and journalism and whatever else. It's amazing.
If we each could garner 10,000 live viewers every time we went live,
wouldn't that be nice?
I would do like a Monday through Friday at whatever time, and I would probably post one video per day. And then we probably also would not need to pursue sponsors. They would pursue us, and that would be the formula right there. We would be all set.
And I hope people know that you and I are not like getting rich off of these ventures.
No.
I hope people realize that. And I know you are doing a lot more than just the Iowa channel. Sometimes people wonder, like, if I'm 3 hours late to a story, or maybe I don't get to a story for a day or a weekend, they're like, why weren't you talking about this? It's 3 days old. Because I have a life. I have other things. I have other things to listen. If I could support myself extensively and exclusively off of one thing, fine, but that's not the reality. I mean, I'm not saying that some people can't do it, but it's a challenge.
Yes, I'm not bemoaning my previous job because it was a really good job, but I wasn't, just hand over fist making money, could do whatever I want, but still,
yeah,
compared to this.
I love this. I really do love this.
Yeah, I do too.
So I hope people realize that we do this. We do this largely because this is what we want to do, not because this is the way to get rich fast. Because it's not.
No, there are other ways. I'm trying to do those on the side sometimes, but that's kind of difficult as well.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, if I could keep doing this and then actually make real money,
wouldn't that be nice
on the side?
ESPN was letting you do that for a while.
Well, they were letting me, yes, do this on the side. They sure were. They certainly were, folks. We do this every Tuesday, and Corey posts this in audio form. So if you enjoy the audio versions, please join Corey on all the major platforms, from the Hawkeye of the Storm, not just this show, but others as well. The Amazon links in the description section. Please shop there. We've got the Nebraska show coming up next on the Huskers channel. And we've got Cooper DeJean, a Philadelphia Eagle. And Tory Taylor, of course, was the first kicker/punter taken off the board. No surprise. He's that good. And Eric All, of course, was also Logan Lee taken in the NFL draft. Was that am I missing anyone?
No, you got them all. Tory Taylor was taken before, and this has been a topic. I think it was Chris Hassel, who used to work news and sports in Central Iowa before getting hired by ESPN years ago. If I'm not mistaken, he tweeted a couple of days ago how ridiculous it was, or impressive it was, that Iowa's punter got drafted ahead of Iowa State's first overall pick. So like TJ Tampa, who at one time a lot of people thought was going to be, first or second round draft pick, maybe even a higher pick than Cooper DeJean, Tory Taylor got drafted higher than TJ Tampa. That is a pretty incredible thing. When you really think about it, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, because it's common approach that NFL teams can get place kickers and punters as free agents, and they're really good. At no time in the history of the league have they been more accurate as place kickers or as good as punters. But to go into the draft up into the fourth round to grab a punter, and a couple of years ago it was Jake Moody, the Michigan field goal kicker, who went roughly that high as well. That's that NFL team valuing that punter or place kicker being that much better, whatever that measurement is, than the 30 other guys that can do the job that they can get off the free agent wire. Yeah. And then I'm also assuming that some Hawkeyes were plucked up in free agency and invited to some camps.
They were. Joe Evans is with the Ravens, I believe. We can run through a couple of the others that are I'm drawing a blank on. You'll have to, if I had names in my mind, I can pull them up. You mentioned Logan Lee. Here's a guy who, shows the value of a good performance, athletic performance that I think a lot of people did not expect out of him. He put on a show. I think was it at the NBA Combine or the NBA Combine, the NFL Combine, or was it at a pro day? I didn't think he got invited to the Combine, but perhaps he did.
Yes, didn't he post that ridiculous run of numbers that you dug up his NFL Combine right. Athletic, whatever that's called, that athleticism metric that was extremely high, like the top 5 to 10% in the history of the Combine.
Right. Yeah. So I don't think he gets. I honestly, I don't think he gets drafted without those numbers. Nothing against Logan Lee, but he was very. He was just modest in his performance at Iowa. He was solid. Obviously, an older guy, very experienced, had good size. But man, I didn't. I kind of looked at him like I looked at maybe a Matt Nelson, who ended up switching over to offensive tackle. Now, Matt Nelson was a little taller, has been a pretty good offensive tackle in the league. But so Logan Lee ended up going, let's see, in the 6th round, second pick in the 6th round to Pittsburgh. Probably higher than I would have anticipated. But again, shows you the results of a good combine. Frankly, Eric All being drafted in the 4th round was higher than I anticipated. And Torrey Taylor being drafted in the 4th round was higher than I anticipated. So I think overall, very good performance. I know people, including myself, were a little bit perturbed by the fact that Cooper slipped out of the 1st. I know Phillies, they have to be ecstatic to get him when they did, where they did. They traded up to grab him. And the fact that he was still available, he'll be a great piece for them. It'll be interesting to see, like Joe Evans. It sounds like he's going to be auditioning to be an outside linebacker with Baltimore. Probably not big enough to be a defensive end. Obviously, very productive career at Iowa. But all those guys, happy for him, and solid class. 4 guys drafted, and like I say, you have a punter going in the 4th round. You'll take that any day of the week.
Did you hear anything from Cooper DeJean in particular after his draft selection?
It's funny you asked that. I'm in talks trying to get Cooper back on the show, so that's my goal. I know sounds like he's trying to get settled in Philly. I expect to hear back hopefully today or tomorrow, and we'll try to get him on a show. I know I saw something on Twitter. I'm not on Twitter during the offseason as much as I am during football and basketball, but I saw him holding up his number 2 jersey. I'm assuming that means he's going to be wearing number 2 at Philly, but he actually responded to a tweet and said, the reason I'm holding this up is because I fell out of the 1st round. This is a 2nd round jersey. But I'm assuming he's going to be number 2. Maybe that's his way of saying, hey, I got a little chip on my shoulder. Heading to Philly. I don't know what Philly, I really don't know roster wise what they have at corner. I don't know what they do on what they look like on special teams with punt returns, but he's electric enough. Assuming he's healthy, I would think he's got an opportunity like Charlie Jones did with the Bengals to come in there, return punts right away, and offer something on the defensive side of things, whether that be at corner or maybe a safety position.
Yeah, like you, I don't know their roster needs, or if it was just a situation where they were looking at Cooper DeJean at 40, thinking he was 17 or 18 on our board. We just can't pass him up. He's too good. And this is not a position of need, but we're going to grab him anyway. And that's more so the approach of NFL teams today than it was years and years ago. It used to be a needs draft approach for the most part. Really, the Dallas Cowboys were the first ones to say, we're drafting the best player off the board, and made that kind of the new wave.
A couple things real quick. I pulled up these other ones. So Noah Shannon, who obviously missed last year due to that investigation, the gambling scandal, which is now turning into another investigation against the people that brought that investigation down. And was it legal or not, etc. Noah Shannon has got a chance with the Raiders, so he was signed on in free agency. And then Steven Silianos, backup tight end, has signed with the Titans. So now, which I think is great too. I mean, why wouldn't you, if you're a team in the league, be like, hey, well, let's take a shot on this backup or this third string Iowa tight end. Like, we're not using a draft pick on him, but maybe we'll strike gold. I mean, George Kittle was what, a fourth, or I think he's a fifth round draft pick. I mean, you never know with this stuff. And Stylianos did, I think, let's see, he got here. He had 2 years here. So he was at Lafayette prior, was pretty productive as a big body. I think he dealt with some injuries one of the last 2 years he was at Iowa, but yeah, we'll see. I'm rooting for all of them.
Comments and questions, folks. We will take them in the chat. And we're here at the Voice of College Football with our Iowa show. And we, of course, are here with Corey every Tuesday at 5:30 Eastern, 4:30 where it counts. From the Hawkeye of the Storm is where you can catch Corey's work on a regular basis. And you've got something ready to deliver for all of us here in the next few hours, correct?
Yeah, I'll be posting a show kind of giving my reaction to the Brian Ferentz news. It was broke a few days ago that he would be added as an analyst to the Maryland Terps staff, offensive analyst. I think it's an intriguing hire given not only what his history is, what his last name is, but also timing-wise, it coming out kind of toward the end of spring, and personnel-wise with what Maryland has there. This is the first year without a really seasoned guy in Talia Tagovailoa. They also have a new OC in Josh Gaddis. At one point, there were rumors that he could be a candidate for the Iowa job. Of course, I don't think those rumors had any merit. And then Michael Loxley, who's had a really explosive offense at Maryland. So I'll be posting that show here this evening. And then I've got an interview with Iowa offensive lineman Josh Janowski, one of 2 freshmen that enrolled early, competed this spring. So that'll be coming out here later today.
Yes, my initial reaction internally, I wouldn't verbalize this in terms of some type of analysis because it's ridiculous, but because of the style of play at Iowa, Brian seems to fit the mold of going to Minnesota or going to Illinois or going somewhere like that. Maryland, as you mentioned, they've been pretty explosive on offense. Really good quarterback has moved on. They've got a 3-way battle for the job. We kind of outlined that a couple of weeks ago after their spring game right now. And I don't know if that's Mike Loxley's approach, if that's the type of program he wants, or he just kind of fell into, okay, this is, and they recruit and develop really good wide receivers and have since he's been there, Loxley. So I don't know if that's just more him fitting into the personnel or if he wants to throw the ball more than run it there. But that's what they've been.
Well, I'll encourage people once I post that to go watch my 10 minutes of thoughts on that. But I'll just say this, Mark. If I was to grade that hire, not that we're going to spend time grading the hiring of offensive analysts around the country, but from a Maryland perspective, I would grade that as a B. Maybe a B minus. And as a Brian Ferentz perspective, I would grade it as an A or an A minus. And I'll tell you why. I know some people think it's ridiculous because of some of the things you just outlined, but from a Maryland standpoint, what have they not done well on offense? Ran the ball. I mean, they throw the ball a lot, right? They throw the ball more than any other team. They threw the ball more than any other team in the Big Ten last year. So that's obviously been the focus. Now they don't have Talia, so perhaps we don't know exactly how that quarterback situation is going to pan out, but perhaps they look at things and say, hey, we do need to become a little bit more balanced. Here's a guy in Brian Ferentz who's a former center. He's coached running backs, former tight ends coach. O-line coach. We're going to bring him in not as a coach, not as a full-time coach, but as an analyst. And he can assist a guy in Josh Gaddis, who's a wide receivers coach, who's a pass-first guy. We don't need Brian to meddle with this. From a Brian Ferentz perspective, why I think it's not only a good job to take, but a great job to take. He's not going to be getting hired by Kalen DeBoer at Alabama or Sarkisian, or he's not going to get one of these high-profile jobs. That's as about as good of a job as you could expect him to get from an analyst perspective. If he wanted to go coach offensive line or tight ends, or maybe be an offensive coordinator, I'm sure he could have found a job out there. Probably not at the FBS level if he's a coordinator, but hey, he could have went to the high school level and been a head coach. And this may not be what happened, but if I'm Brian Ferentz and my goal is still to become a head coach someday, and to do that, I do think you need to become a well-seasoned play caller and a proven coordinator. I know Kirk didn't do that, and it worked out, but for the most part, that needs to happen. Go somewhere and learn. Go somewhere and learn. I know that Josh Gaddis, from a personal standpoint, there's been some I don't want to say scandals, but there have been talk about character issues when he was at Michigan, and I think maybe that was some of the hesitancy from some programs when he was struggling at Miami, not to bring him in, because he was obviously very successful at Michigan, won a Broyles Award one year. So I guess my point being is he's able to go learn from a guy like Gaddis, learn from Michael Locksley, who's coached a really good pass offense for quite some time, and then from a Locksley perspective, again, maybe able to help the run game a little bit. I think it's a win-win on both sides.
Yeah, that makes total sense. That really does from that perspective. Pretty much inputting a strength into a weakness on both fronts.
I made this point clear on the podcast, Mark. I have been very critical of Brian Ferentz. A lot of people have been very critical of Brian Ferentz. But what I try to do, I don't always do a great job of doing it, but I think you and I both try to be balanced, whether we like an individual we're talking about, we don't like them personally. Like, when we're talking about sports, we're trying to be balanced and give an objective opinion, as objective an opinion as we can. I've never stated that I think Brian Ferentz is a bad coach. I've said that I think he was way in over his head as the offensive coordinator. He had no business being a quarterback's coach, coordinating a passing game, play calling, on Saturdays. But I would have had no issue with him sticking as the running backs coach. Now, at that point, when he 3 years into a historically bad offense, no, he needed to go. We're not going to demote him. He took the job, took the promotions. That's how it works. You're done. Bye. We're not taking that reputation back. So, but point being, I don't have any doubt that he could coach tight ends well at this level, offensive line well at this level, running backs well at this level. So, yeah, again, I don't know why it's not a good thing if you're Maryland. I know the first thought from people is, oh, he coordinated the Iowa offense, he must suck. I just think that's a shallow way of looking at it. And this is coming from someone who felt very strongly about him not being part of the Iowa program anymore.
Yeah, I got to think that he has much to offer in that way. It reminded me of a question that I asked Mike Locksley at Big Ten Media Days last year, because they have consistently not been stout enough up front on both sides of the ball, but we're talking offense, to deal with the three powers in that division. Now, of course, the dynamic of the league's different, but still, if they want to ascend in the conference, they're going to have to be more than just this team that can throw it around. And they have developed into that a little bit better. They were a better defense last year, and not just a secondary team, meaning their secondary has been good. They've produced NFL defensive backs and then offensive players, but linebackers, defensive line, offensive line has not been great. It's interesting that with Brian's most recent offenses at Iowa, and especially his last two quarterbacks, are even going back to Nate Stanley, that the two guys competing for the job at Maryland are mobile quarterbacks. You could almost call them running quarterbacks.
That's what I'm saying. Like, Brian Ferentz going to a Minnesota, or I know Wisconsin's a little different now, but your Iowa type of program, what does that do for him? He needs to go somewhere where he is out of his comfort zone, but not put on the front lines. That's what should have happened in the first place. I'm not saying he should have went from being a tight ends coach at New England to being an analyst at Maryland, but he should have went the route in the first place, learning, and then it would, whether it worked out or not, the whole nepotism claims would have been there because of his last name if he failed at Iowa. But at least you could say he completely earned the opportunity. You can argue he didn't. You can argue he did not earn the opportunity to be the offensive coordinator at Iowa, certainly the quarterback's coach. So if he ever wants to get a chance to call plays again at the highest of levels, this is what you got to do, because he's not going to get a job at Ohio State or Penn State or Miami or Texas or Alabama. So Maryland's been, like you said, they're going to be one of the biggest beneficiaries of the broken up Big Ten Conference. I mean, they've been maybe number one. I mean, you could argue either them or Penn State. They've been buried with basically no chance of winning a championship or getting to a playoff because they've had to face Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State every single year. And that, not that their schedule is going to get easy, but it's going to get easier when you look at it in comparison to the rest of the conference.
All right. Now, moving on to the transfer portal, which officially closes on Wednesday, April 30th. Now, players can make their decision later, but they just have to be in the portal by the end of April. I know you've got a couple players to note that have made their decisions on the Iowa side, and then we will touch on the quarterback situation.
Yeah, I did post yesterday on the channel. I know it's out there. Tommy Paholski has entered the portal, preferred walk-on quarterback. Normally, we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about walk-ons in general. Not that they're not important, but it does not affect the scholarship count. However, with Paholski, he is a legacy guy. His dad was a very successful quarterback, tragically passed away actually a few years ago, but it was part of the Hayden Fry, Don Patterson, Bill Snyder era at Iowa. So Tommy, 1 year into the program, has left, is leaving, looking for a new home. I don't know, is there a chance he doesn't like his options and comes back? Sure. I think Iowa's likely going to have a preferred walk-on at quarterback this fall. And somebody brought that to my attention yesterday. Does this mean they definitely go to the portal at quarterback? Well, I don't think Tommy Paholski entering the portal makes any difference. Yeah, they don't have depth, but they'll get some. My guess is they'll get somebody as a preferred walk-on. So if they were going to get a quarterback, a scholarship guy at quarterback prior to his departure, they were going to get one after. And I think they probably will do that. But my guess is they'll get somebody else as a preferred walk-on if he doesn't return. And he can return. Remember, guys can enter the portal and then come back. And a guy like Paholski, who's not paying for a scholarship, I'm sure Iowa would take him back. Why wouldn't you? And then you look at A.J. Lawson. He was on scholarship, the DB out of Decatur, Illinois, but he's not been with the team for the last 6-7 months, I think, at least. And I'd kind of forgotten about him to an extent. Knew he wasn't on the active roster. Sounds like he had taken a medical hardship or whatever, medical scholarship. So he was not counting against the 85. So his entering the portal does nothing for Iowa's quest for 85, right? They're at 87 right now still. And unless they get down to 85 before fall camp, they got to figure out a way to get a couple of guys off scholarship. As of right now, I've heard nothing about guys entering today. I was told late last week, I'm comfortable repeating this. I was told late last week from a source close to the program that it was anticipated that a couple more guys were going to enter. I did not expect those guys to be a preferred walk-on and a guy who was, not with the team in A.J. Lawson. So I guess when those I did not reach out to that source after those guys entered, but my anticipation was that there were other people, one or two other people. And there are a couple positions, one being linebacker, one being running back, that I'm surprised we haven't heard anything yet on. But we still have till the end of the day. Graduates, I found out, Mark, I made a mistake on my recording yesterday. I made the comment that graduates can enter anytime. Apparently that's no longer the case. The NCAA changed that rule this month. And now graduates have to be in the portal by tomorrow. They get an extra day. They have to be in the portal by May 1st. Sounds like the paperwork processing time can vary with certain schools. So there's a chance you don't technically know that guys are in the portal until later this week. But in general, guys have to be in the portal either today or tomorrow. Tomorrow if you're a graduate. I'll almost be blown away if we don't get somebody from those two positions entering the portal. I don't know how you can hold on to all those running backs. If Tim Lester, Liddell Betts, Seth Wallace, Phil Parker managed to hold on to everybody, props to them. I mean, they still got to get down to 85 somehow or figure out another way for somebody to go off scholarship, pay them with the collective. But those, like, I'm fine with like guys like Jazz Patterson not entering the portal. I'm fine with guys like Jaden Harrell not entering the portal. Now, I mean, it's up to you whether you want to. Would you prefer Jaden Montgomery, who's buried right now, I think, at linebacker, to enter? You know, Zach Tweed is an Iowa kid. You hate to see him leave. You want to see him have success at Iowa, but the kids are buried right now. So you also want to have him have individual success. So you can make the argument it'd be in their best interest to leave, but ultimately it's their decisions. Iowa is not going to force kids off scholarship. We've talked about this. Kirk's not going to tell kids you have to leave. He may tell them you're not going to play. Like, we really don't have a place for you right now. We'll honor your scholarship, but you're not going to play. The other thing that could happen is a guy could end up like AJ Lawson. Michael Myslinski, I hope, can get healthy. He has not been. I don't know when the last time he's been on the field. Tom Kakert made that comment to me a week or two ago after the spring game and was like, hey, I haven't seen Michael Myslinski be in uniform maybe one time since he got to Iowa 2 or 3 years ago. I think he's exaggerating a little bit. But someone like that, like if he's just struggling with injuries, there's always a chance a guy takes a medical and then the scholarship number goes down.
So how comfortable are you if they go to August camp with their current quarterback situation?
How comfortable am I? I mean, I'd be intrigued. I know you know this. I would be intrigued to see what would happen if it was Cade McNamara, Marco Linez, James Rezar. Like if it's Cade McNamara with two legs that have both been torched in the past, and then two really young guys with a ton of upside but totally unproven, I would be very intrigued, but I would also be a little bit scared. Like they do need to go I'll admit they should go out and get somebody. The problem is that the talent pool is not real saturated right now, Mark. There's not a lot of guys out there.
I don't know who they would go get. I know that we mentioned these two quarterbacks last week. It's Timmy McClain, who I don't believe has found a destination. He's a UCF backup who did get some valuable playing time last year, 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns, 3 picks. And then also Joey Lagos. Did I get that right? Lagos?
Cooper.
Why do I say, you know why I say Joey? Because I've got a stuck in my head, Joey Labus. Cooper Lagos of Utah State. Lagos. I should have watched that game. Cooper Lagos. Yes, out of Utah State. I believe he's still available. And other than that,
Colin Schlee from California.
Oh, yeah. Kent State, UCLA.
Yeah. Say that again.
Kent State, UCLA.
Yeah, he visited Virginia Tech over the weekend. And I'll admit this because I've said this part, I'm not typically your insider, but once in a while I'll get a little eager and I'll be like, hey, I'm going to try to reach out to somebody. I reached out to a couple people in the Colin Schlee camp, including Colin Schlee himself. Nothing. Crickets. Usually, and guys like Tom or Elliot Clough, they can, attest to this. Usually that means there's the sign that probably not coming to the school that you not represent, but you're working with. So my guess is that that's an indicator that he's not coming to Iowa. And I did see an article posted yesterday on VT Scoop, which is 247 Sports, that it's a VIP article. And of course I don't pay for 247, but it sounds like he is nearing a decision, and the schools that he's down to are Kentucky and Virginia Tech. So based on that, based on everything, I have no reason to think he's coming to Iowa. I have reason to believe that he was on Iowa's board at one point recently, but that doesn't mean anything. I mean, they may not have even reached out to him. I just know he was one of the guys. But like every guy that's done anything that's in the portal right now should be on your board because there's not many guys out there. Like that's the problem. Could Jimmy
really not?
Maybe Jimmy Sullivan can get done with high school and he can reclassify. He's Iowa's 2025 quarterback. I don't know.
Oh, that's right. There's Brendan Sullivan from Northwestern.
Yeah, I don't know. Have you heard anything about him? I have not
No.
heard anything more about him.
I forgot about him.
So he'd obviously be the other guy that we talked about him a week ago.
That also reminds me that I'm supposed to have a insider membership or whatever it's called to 247 Sports.
Oh, well, there you go.
I'm supposed to get that through something else, and I contacted them, and it's not working. And I forgot about that months ago. I'll get on that. Isaiah Gonzalez, thank you for the comment. So Isaiah, yes. So what we will do is Corey makes all his predictions. That involves Iowa, of course, and whatever beyond that. I predict everybody's record in the country. What we will do in addition to that, Isaiah, is throughout the summer, we will certainly bring on media contributors from all of Iowa's major opponents, probably all the Big Ten teams, and then Iowa State, at least that number of media contributors. So we will be previewing the games, of course, the week of the game, but then also starting here in June, we will start to look at that, May or June. So we will do that. Yes.
Yeah, I don't see anything on Brendan Sullivan. I have not tried to reach out to anybody. I mean, literally, I've reached out to nobody. I don't think I've even said anything to Elliot or Tom about it. Yeah, I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't go. Why wouldn't you go after him? Tim Lester also recruited him out of high school. I think he's an obvious candidate, unless he's got. I don't think he's got a no contact tag.
He is the guy right now. He's number one. He is.
Who else is out there, Mark?
I just named them. The UCF backup and your guy, Cooper.
Lagasse.
Yes.
Okay. Here's where we are right now. I'm looking at this per 247's transfer portal database. Let's see. Guy from Louisiana Tech, RJ Martinez from Baylor entered yesterday. Sam Heward.
Oh, the lefty. Yeah,
yes,
that's
what's going on
Brock
with him?
Heward's son.
What's going on with him?
He was an FCS player, correct?
Yeah, but wasn't he a 5-star out of high school?
Yes, he was, wasn't he?
Just curious on him. But yeah, he was at Cal Poly last year. Let's see, Caleb Jordan, Northern Illinois, Matt Ruvi from Boston College, Tyler Voss, San Jose State, Brendan Strickland, La Tech, CJ Tiller from Boise, Sean Boyle from West Virginia, Demarcus Davis, Washington, was a 4-star at high school. I mean, I don't know any of these guys that I'm reading through.
Yeah, none of them play. But I do recall Davis. Sam Heward, coming out of high school, was the 3rd-rated quarterback in the country. He was a top 25 player, period. You're right. 5-star. I do recall that.
Let's see. Am I missing anybody? Let me see what the top. Let's see, available. Yeah, so I mean, in general, looks like who's Demarcus Davis? Do you know anything about him? Back up at Washington, who entered 4 days ago.
Yeah, I know the name, and I know that he was highly touted coming out of high school, but he hasn't played.
Well, I mean, again, I mean, beggars can't be choosers here. Who's going to want to come to Iowa with Cade McNamara being the presumed backup? You're going to have to get somebody who's probably unproven. Maybe you can coax Brendan Sullivan into coming here, but man.
Yeah, and then you've got an open competition for the job.
Maybe.
Or, I don't want to say his name again, Cooper out of Utah State.
I don't even see him on this list. Where is he?
Oh, maybe,
by the way,
maybe he got snatched up.
Demarcus, no, I don't think he did. Let me look this here. I'm sure this is great listening for our audio people. Let's see. School, they're Mountain West, aren't they? Let's go Utah State.
I think there's a lot of people surprised Ohio State is still sitting there with 5 quarterbacks.
Now, Cooper Lagasse is still available. But, I mean, I guess he'd be better than, I mean, he did play last year, right? I guess you take that. He had offers out of high school from Arkansas, from BYU, from let's see, Air Force, Navy. It looks like, it'd be pretty ridiculous if he left. I mean, I don't know. Did he leave because Spencer Petras beat him out? Was that what happened? Did he leave because of Petras? Because it'd be pretty bad if Iowa grabbed somebody because they got beat out by Petras. Like, that would be pretty bad, right? I'm just saying, it just would be. Yeah, I don't see anything on. I'm just looking here. I don't see anything on Cooper Lagasse recently. Nothing even on. Yeah, I could try to reach out to him. I don't know. I have no connections to Cooper Lagasse. I'm trying to think. Do I have connections to Utah State? Didn't we have somebody on from Utah State last year?
We did.
Who would that have been?
I don't remember.
I'll do some.
Look up the show.
I'll do some dirty work, Mark.
Nice. I love it.
I'll do some. And by the way, there is another guy who is in the portal from Utah State that Iowa could look at. And his name is, let me see here. I believe it's Illingworth. Transferred in from Hawkeyes State a couple of years ago. Do you know who I'm talking about, Mark?
No, I don't.
I hate 247 Sports. You bring up the guide, and as soon as you try to filter something, it resets all your other filters. You got to start over.
Yeah.
Stupid.
It is stupid. It's annoying. Yeah.
So it looks like as of right now, Shane Illingworth. I'm sorry, he was Nevada. So I remember him from I'm getting the two white and blue teams confused. Shane Illingworth is also available, Mark. And I believe 2 years ago, he played against Iowa in that game that lasted like 3 hours or no more than like 6 hours. I'm sorry. Lasted like 6 hours late at night. He had transferred in from Oklahoma State. Do you remember him?
No, I don't.
He's a big guy, 6'6.5", 234.
So he played in the game that they got shut out against Iowa.
I don't think he was the starter that day.
Okay.
But I do believe he played, and he had a lot of good offers coming out of high school. Like I say, he signed with Oklahoma State, had offers from Colorado, Oregon State, Arizona, Louisville, Arizona State, Arkansas, Wazoo, Cal. So anyways, had good offers. And let me pull up his stats. So he'd maybe be another one. I'm sure people don't want to see another statue quarterback at Iowa. And if I recall, 6'6.5", 234, I would assume that he's not real mobile.
Well, I was hoping that they were going to go grab somebody who was capable of competing with Cade McNamara. But if they have to go second level and get somebody who at least gives them an insurance policy who can compete against Marco Lyonez to be the backup quarterback in case Marco's not prepared to play in the Big Ten.
Well, here's what Illingworth did in 2021 for Nevada. 6 games played, 84 completions, 145 attempts. That's good for 58% passing completion percentage. And then 761 yards, 5.2 yards per attempt, 4.6 attempt average yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, QB rating of 102.
Sounds like an Iowa quarterback to me.
That's what I was going to say. It sounds perfect. Why don't we just bring Brian back while we're at it, Mark? I mean, heck, if you're going to go there, just bring in Deacon, bring back Deacon. If you're bringing in some 6'6.5" guy from Utah State with those numbers, just bring back Deacon for Pete's sake.
We did not talk a lot of Deacon Hill when he went into the transfer portal because it propelled into, okay, who are they going to go get? Did you ever find out anything, as you continue to put your insider hat on, in regards to, did he just assess the situation and think, I can't start here, so I'm gone?
I've heard 2 different things. One from a non-source. This was a rumor that he asked for money. I don't know that there's any legs for that. Why would he ask for money? Okay, I don't know. Maybe he did. I have no idea. That was a rumor out there. I don't know where it got started.
He was the starting quarterback in the Big Ten championship game. Of course,
Yeah.
he asked for money.
The other thing that I was told right after he entered, because this was from a more reliable source connected with the program, the roster, was that he was told that they were going to be shopping the quarterback market in the portal. So I that's all I was told. Again, have not heard anything that has legs as it relates to specific people that I was targeted. And I have not heard anything about Deacon Hill and programs that have reached out to him. I mean, what kind of programs would reach out to him at this point, Mark? I'm sure somebody will reach out to him. He played last year in the Big Ten. But, I mean, T. Hink says he's going to an SEC school. Is Kalen DeBoer in search of a starting quarterback, Mark?
No, he's not. Or a backup. Or a third stringer.
Is Jalen Milroe still there?
Yes. He's still there.
So maybe he
can
can
backup is like one of the best freshmen in the country.
Maybe Caden, you know what? Maybe that's what happened with Alabama. All this time, Alabama sent Caden Proctor to Iowa just to poach Deacon Hill. One big boy to another. He was sent to Iowa City to coax Deacon Hill into the portal to come to Alabama. Maybe that's what happened.
Well, if it wasn't that, and it was the pay rumor, then
I don't know which one makes less sense.
Maybe a gift card to where's
Quick
your
Trip?
stop? Culver's?
I was going to say Quick Trip or Quick Star.
That would have taken care of things.
Someone brings up in the chat, Deuce Hogan, is he still out there? Last I knew, he was in the portal. Could they bring back Carson May? He was in the portal last I knew. Have any of those former Iowa quarterbacks... Think about how many former Iowa quarterbacks don't have homes. I mean, think about it. Isn't this crazy?
They are out there. And they're coming back to Iowa, if they would, with no experience because they weren't able to play anywhere else.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not a great situation.
No, it's not. But they'll get somebody. I think they will get somebody. I think they'll bring in a preferred walk-on, as I said earlier. I mean, maybe James Rezar comes in and really looks good in fall camp. There's just something intriguing to me. I guess this is where I stand on this because a lot of people think, you know, it's obvious that you should be lobbying for a quarterback. I'm not lobbying for anything, but it is intriguing to me the idea of Iowa being forced to play a young guy. Because in so many cases in the past, when a guy goes down, they play the guy that nobody wants them to play. At least in this case, Cade gets injured. They have to go either Marco or James. You know, like as opposed to go getting Shane Illingworth and just being like, oh, here we go again. Like that's, you know what I'm saying? Like there's something intriguing about they have to play Marco or they have to play Rezar.
Yeah.
It could be a total disaster.
Yeah.
But at least we'd get to see that for once. Not a total disaster. We see that a lot. But a total disaster as it relates to playing a young guy and putting your chips in a guy you're uncomfortable with. I think maybe there's a chance there's a little bit of that happens given the fact that Tim Lester is a part of this program now anyways. But still, it's a Kirk Ferentz-led program. So they'll probably bring in an experienced guy. I doubt Kirk is comfortable going in to spring or to fall, regardless of what Lester says, with Rezar and Linez as backups to Cade.
I would agree. And I agree on the point of the intrigue of seeing a Marco Linez in the second quarter of a Big Ten game trotting out onto the field when it's 3-3. And hey, it's your season now.
3-3. Well, hey, defense. Listen, here's what's going to happen. This is what we've said how many years in a row. The defense will give them chances, even in games where Iowa struggles mightily at quarterback. They just will. Like that's even with turnovers. I mean, everybody talks about, oh, Kirk wants a game manager. Deacon Hill was as turnover prone as any quarterback in the country. That's what didn't make sense about Kirk just sticking with the guy for so long because he's coughing up the football left and right. And yet Iowa still won 10 games. Yes, they got blown out in the games they lost, but I guess that's where I stand on it. Like, regardless of who plays, you're going to have a chance assuming you start with a clean slate, and they're going to play good teams. I mean, I know we've talked about the schedule not being as tough as some, but at UCLA is going to be difficult. Washington, I know they lost a lot. They're still coming off a national title. They're not going to be Rutgers of 10 years ago. Maybe you think they will, Mark, but I don't think a team can take that big of a nosedive. So they'll have challenges, and they got to get somebody in there to compete.
And in that situation, with Marco coming off the bench and him taking over most likely for the rest of the season, unless he's a disaster, what would be great about that would be, because the defense is so good, then the wide receiver core becomes even less relevant, becomes completely non-existent, and they rely on running their 3 running backs who are really good and letting Marco Lionez run the ball. And they just become a running juggernaut. Quarterback runs, running backs. We throw to the tight end a few times a game.
Look, I know that there will be a lot of people that say you're just armchair. We're armchair quarterbacks to some extent. But yeah, absolutely. Like, there is a lot of talent on the offensive side of the football for Iowa. I mean, we don't say that a whole lot, and I'm not saying it's everywhere, but there are individuals who are very talented, who have raw potential. Terrell Washington Jr., guy with raw potential, can catch, can pass, good athlete, really good speed. Caleb Brown, obviously, raw potential. He was a high 4-star recruit. Ohio State wanted him at receiver. He's not proven anything, but he's got potential. They've got a Caleb Johnson at running back, who is a big guy. Now, does he know how to use his size yet? It doesn't appear so. We have not seen that. But he is a guy with upside. Same with Jazz Patterson. Like, they've got players. I absolutely agree with you. It'll be interesting to see if they end up in the same situation. Like, if Tim Lester had been here a year ago with Cade going down, what would Tim have done differently? I'm sure he would have done so much differently, right? If he had full reins to things. But how does it look different? What type of ingenuity would Kirk allow in that situation? Yeah, I mean, to me, regardless of who they get, Marco's legs, he's one of the better athletes on this roster, given his position. You got to figure out a way to use him, even if his arm sucks. I mean, you just got to figure out a way to get him on the field. Same with Terrell Washington, same with Caleb Brown. And if Caleb Johnson doesn't enter the portal, if he remains at Iowa, then yeah, use him as well, because he's got speed. They've got people, and that's what's intriguing to me, is you finally have someone who is offensive minded. And I don't know that Brian was really ever offensive minded. I mean, to some extent, he had to have been, because he played football his whole life and played on that side of the football. But it's different when you're talking about a former quarterback. I just think it'll be intriguing to see. I don't see Lester. Do you see Tim Lester just going down with the ship like Brian did each of these last 3 years, Mark?
Not based on his history. And I also see him being more adaptable to what the talent dictates. Not
exactly.
This is the offense we run, and you just better run it. So that's what it is. But if it's Marco Lionez that comes into the game for a Cade McNamara, okay, this changes what we do, because we want to make him comfortable and effective.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, I don't want it to happen, but I would be intrigued if Cade couldn't play and Lester had to game plan the week with James Rezar and Marco Lionez. I would be fascinated to see what he would do, because it would be the ultimate test for an unproven OC. I guess that's where I stand on this. We've seen so much of the same vanilla garbage on that side of the football for so long. I just want to see, who do we have at the helm here?
Yeah. I also think there's a level of intrigue, even though this is not nearly as much so, with Cade McNamara making it through the entire season as the starting quarterback, to see how truly productive he will be with this offense, because he's only played one full season, as successful as that was.
Who again?
Cade McNamara.
What do you mean?
I think there's a level of intrigue to see how effective he would be for a full season if he never gets hurt, plays the full season.
He didn't play in 2020?
He played half the season.
The COVID year?
Well, first of all, they only played 6 games.
Okay.
He played like 3 games.
Who played the other? Who
Joe Milton,
it was
who
Milton.
just
Okay.
got drafted.
Yeah.
This past weekend.
Yeah. I mean, no. I mean, Cade's health should absolutely be questioned. There's no. If he want, like, that's another example. If people have made the claim that if you go to the portal, it's pushing guys out. If Cade McNamara gets angry because Iowa's going to the portal, then see you later. Like, you are not bigger than the program. And if you really want us to put our confidence in your two broken legs, have a nice day and go find a home at La Tech. I mean, it's just no. He's been very injury prone. Now, again, from a quarterback position, we talk about the lack of talent in that pool right now in the portal. There are things that can be attractive to outside names. For instance, the new offense, the new scheme, the new quarterbacks coach. You look at a guy like Luke Lachey. Luke Lachey has a chance to be another high-end draft pick next year in the draft. And we don't even see, I mean, he's coming off an injury, but assuming he stays healthy, he is one of the early favorites for tight end of the year nationally. So that's a weapon to have a safety blanket like a Luke Lachey. And we keep hearing that they're going to probably add somebody in the portal at receiver. They had is it Raylan Sharp, the kid from Missouri State that visited here a little over a week ago. I've not heard anything substantiated on him, but I mean, they might, if you can get a receiver, that would be another attractive piece to potentially lure a middle tier quarterback, I guess.
If I'm a capable quarterback, and I hear this all the time, and you hear it probably 10 times more than I do, oh, who would want to go play at Iowa, a quarterback? If I'm a good quarterback, I'm enticed by, okay, they've got a new offensive coordinator. He's got a great reputation. He's done good things. Sitting down, talking to him. Okay, Luke Lachey. I'm going to get supported by a running game. Hopefully the offensive line is up to the challenge. But I can play for a really good team because we've got an excellent defense. I don't have to put up, sure, I want to put up tons of points and yardage and touchdowns and look good statistically, but I don't have to. We can win games 20-14, and I can do my job, and I'm supported by an excellent defense, and we can win a lot of games.
And they're going to be good on special teams. I mean, even if with Torrey Taylor gone, they're going to be okay. I mean, we watched Ty Nissen and Reese Dakin at the spring game. I thought Dakin looked like the better of the two. That was not surprising, and he's young. He's not as old as Torrey Taylor. Was like 24 when he got to Iowa, and I think Dakin is 19. So, but he's going to be really good. We've talked about him. So, I mean, it probably won't be perfect, but they're going to be fine. Drew Stevens has been through some lumps during the offseason. I still have faith that he's going to figure it out. He'll be fine. And they'll figure out somebody to return kicks and punts. Caleb Johnson returned a lot of kicks last year. That might be an enticement to keep him here. Hey, you're going to be featured. LaShawn's going to be gone next year. And in the meantime, even if you're not getting 50% of the snaps, you're going to be featured on special teams. Maybe they have him return punts. Maybe that's a way that they keep one of these backs engaged. I agree. This defense has got a chance to be better than it was last year, Mark. They got a chance. They played a quarter of the season without Cooper DeJean. I mean, he's the biggest piece they lost. I know they lost Logan Lee, but DeJean is the biggest piece they lost. Shanzo didn't play last year. They didn't lose anybody at linebacker. Ontario Thompson departed via the portal, but he didn't play. They got Jamari Harris, Quinn Schulte, Xavier Wampa, Sebastian Castro, Deshaun Lee. All those guys are back in the defensive backfield. They're going to be right there at the top of the Big Ten, near the top of the Big Ten defensively again next year. No, you're absolutely right. We've talked about. That's why you and I think both agree on this. They got a chance to win 10 games again.
I was about to say, how in the world, with this new schedule, with the 4 new teams from the Pac-12, did they avoid playing any of the heavyweights? Well, they do go to Columbus. Okay. They do play at Ohio State. Besides that, no Michigan, no Penn State, no USC, no Oregon. What would be considered the 4 next programs in this conference?
They do get Maryland, which I find fascinating. No, I know. Maryland's going to take a step back. No.
But that's...
I know.
Ohio State's probably the best team in the conference. Probably. It's not a lock, but they missed the next 4.
That's the only game that you look at and say, pretty much we expect automatic loss. I mean, not that they couldn't win, but pretty much. And no,
They
very
could.
few teams win against Ohio State in general, but especially in Columbus. So they're going to lose that game. But who's favored right now? If Iowa, Washington, if they were set to be on the field next week in Kinnick?
Oh, they're a favorite.
What about UCLA on the road?
They are their customary 4-point favorite. They're a favorite at UCLA.
At Maryland.
They're a favorite.
That's what I'm saying. Like, who are they not a favorite against? They play Wisconsin and Kinnick. I think that's pretty close. I think Wisconsin has a chance to take a step forward second year under Fickle, but yeah.
Interesting. All right, folks, we will bid adieu for another Tuesday. We do appreciate you being here. Catch Corey's work on from the Hawkeye of the Storm. We've got the Nebraska show coming up in about 20 minutes on the Huskers channel. So go over there, trash talk, troll, do whatever you want. We appreciate you being here. Make it on back next week. And we noticed with about 150 some odd people in the chat that most of you just showed up here in the last 15 or 20 minutes. Just watch what you missed. As soon as we get done here, you can rewind it and watch what you missed off the top. Corey, as always, thank you so much for making this happen, and we will do it again next Tuesday.
Sounds good, sir.